Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Musically Mindful. Part of the reason that I'm starting this project and building this platform isn't just to highlight, the famous musicians that I'm lucky enough to have had on thus far. It's also to have on the up and coming musicians and also highlight my friends and people that I believe in. And this week, I'm extremely fortunate to have somebody who checks all of those boxes. He's a multi instrumentalist from North Carolina, now by way of Burlington, Vermont. He's a soon to be graduate. You might know him as the keyboard player from a band called Scram or All Night Boogie Band. So please welcome my little brother, not by blood, to the show, Van Garrison.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Mike.
Hey, buddy. I'm stoked to have you here, man. It's for the people that are watching and listening, I'm fortunate to know Van because we met last year. His older sister is one of my closest friends, and he's become a very, very important person to me as well. And I thought it would be really cool to bring him on and pick his brain and give you guys some insight into somebody that you might just not know yet.
It's true. I'm not famous.
You're famous to me.
I'm famous to you. That's all that matters to me, Mike.
um, but yeah, in the realest way, I'm genuinely stoked to have you on, and I think it's going to be cool to foray into this part of the podcast where I can talk to people that either listeners don't know or get to know people even better than I already might.
Totally.
So we'll jump right in, and pretty much the first question that I just want you to elaborate on is, when I say mental health, what does that mean to you?
Um, I mean, it's a big question, of course, but I guess mental health really means like doing what you need to do, like trying to take the time out of your day every day to like do things that feed your brain and feed your mind and heart and soul. Like, that means I feel like totally different things to different people, but I feel like we can all sort of convene on things like exercise, like getting good exercise and like keeping our body healthy so that our mind is healthy. And literally feeding our mind with trying to like learn new things every day and like communicate healthily with other people, trying to be as honest as possible, I feel like is very good for feeding your mind and trying to, you know, assess where you're at and like being honest with yourself, like something like journaling. I've been trying to journal every morning, which has been super, super helpful. Just like boom, as soon as I wake up, journal, get my thoughts down. It's like a very clear-headed part of my day, I feel like the morning is where I really shape the rest of my day and how I'm gonna build these habits and feelings and set my intentions and stuff. Um, and so yeah, just like all this, I feel like a combination of all these things that just kind of like being intentional about feeding your brain good habits and good energy and trying to, you know, share that with other people, because at the end of the day mental health is your own journey, but I feel like it's also a journey of community, uh, because we can truly help each other and that on that journey to like bettering ourselves and bettering our own mental health. I feel like uh, not too recently I definitely felt like I locked myself into the battle of like, oh, mental health is something that, we do ourselves and happiness comes from within. And all these things are true. But I feel like I almost was rejecting a sense of community because of that. I felt like I was almost like on the extreme side of trying to just find that within myself instead of not necessarily relying on other people for it, but like allowing myself to be helped, you know?
So there's so many things that we can unpack in that, and the reason that I love asking that first is for that exact reason, because it means so much to so many different people, and there's so many different composites of what exactly mental health is. One of the major things that I think I want to dig into first is the sense of community that you mentioned. And I think something that's really cool that we can talk about and elaborate on in the context of music that I find interesting as somebody who is a musician and is in bands and has friends, and being in Burlington, it's such a connected musical space for people, whether they're on stage, off stage, if you're all hanging out at Nectar's or you're playing at Radio Bean or whatever the case may be. I find it so interesting that whereas you're integrating more into becoming a focus of community because you're part of a funnel of channeling energy, whatever, in whichever direction, finding that you were rejecting a sense of community is really interesting. And don't get me wrong, I agree completely that mental health has its avenues where it needs to be a personal enterprise, and it needs to
Mhm.
be self-investment and intention and all of those things, because like you said, happiness does come from within. But why do you think that community was something that you were rejecting?
I mean, I don't think I was necessarily rejecting it in general, you know? I feel like more of what I'm saying is I feel like I was rejecting it as an avenue for like growth, if that makes sense.
It does,
Um,
and that's interesting.
why? I feel like I mean, I'm young. I convinced myself of this, I guess. Um,
Sure.
and I don't know. I've always felt like I can do things on my own, you know? And like even recently with like with practicing and stuff, like practicing piano and getting better at my instrument, I've felt this desire to like hole up in like a cabin for 3 months and not see anybody and just try to get better. But the past couple of weeks, I've had a couple practice sessions like with someone else, and we've like learned a solo together, and we like learned it together, and it was so much more beneficial because we were like batting ideas off each other, and like if I couldn't hear something, then the other person could hear it, and just like I don't know, it's been I've been opening my eyes to how like valuable everyone really is, and like how how much we can just kind of pin off each other and create beautiful ideas and more healthy habits if we kind of like agree
Well,
to
it's
push each other.
exactly, yeah, well, pushing each other, certainly. It's the collaborative nature of creation.
Hmm.
It's having the intention to invest in that space and give yourself to it a little bit. Whenever you do anything in life, whether it's practicing an instrument or creating art in whatever medium you choose, there's some, you know, as somebody that makes his own kind of content, there's always the I want to do it by myself. Like I can do it. Like this is
Yeah.
my thing, and it's my responsibility to myself and what have you. But there's something I think really special about being able to give yourself to somebody else in that vulnerability. And
Mhm.
even if it's not to get anything out of it as far as a song or a solo or what have you, but just being able to meet somebody face to face and be like, "Hey, this is a part of me.
Mhm.
Reciprocate and give me a part of you," because it can just unlock
Yeah.
so much.
Mhm.
And I think that particularly within music, one of the real keys to that, and especially in what you do with the improvisational nature and the jam band
Yeah.
world. It's such it's such a community, and it's so collaborative with the fans, with your bandmates, with people that are listening to your music. And I want I guess I want to know, how early on and how did music become an integral part of your life that kind of set you, to where you are now? If music has become something for you that we'll dive a little bit deeper into as well, but just when did music kind of become the thing?
I mean, I wanna say it's always been the thing as, like, a cheesy, fun answer, but, I mean, I don't know, I've always felt like, it's been, like, a thing, passion of mine, but never been like, "This is what I'm gonna do with my life," you know? I've never I mean, maybe it's, like, partly society just kinda being like, "Oh, like, a musician is fun, but it's really hard to do, and you probably won't make it, so don't try," you know? Like, that's always been what I've heard, and, like, I don't think my parents totally played that much of a role in that because they've always been very supportive and loving and generous and, like, trying to help me, do whatever I want to do, not trying to push me in any one direction necessarily, which I'm very grateful for, but yeah, I can't say it's been, like, an integral part of my life until, um, I joined this band in high school. They were One of my buddies was, like, "Yeah, I'm in a band, and, like, we just lost a drummer, like, we're looking for a drummer." And, so I show up to some his name's Marley, this guy named Marley. I show up to his house. It's, like, in a back shed. It's like total hippie house. I walk in and then in the living room, they're playing "Freaker" by the Speaker by Keller Williams. I'm like, "I don't have friends that listen to this type of music, like, I know this song, but I don't have friends that listen to this, like, this is
Not
sick."
yet.
Yeah, right? And, so I walk in and I'm like, immediately good vibes, and we go into the back room, the back shed where all the instruments are, sit down with the kit, we jam a little bit, and they're like, "Alright, like, let's figure some stuff out, like, you're pretty good, like, you're the drummer now," and I'm like, "Sick." Um,
It's a pretty quick
and
gig.
yeah, like junior year of high school, we were all shitty still, but whatever. Um, but, like, I never really listened to The Dead before, and, I mean, like, my parents had, like, put on some stuff when I was a kid, and I was like, "Oh, this is slow and boring." I liked high energy, like, punk and metal and stuff, and,
Mhm.
um but, yeah, they were like, "Alright, here's our first cover, China Cat Sunflower." And I was like, "Okay." So I listened to
the
it and
the quintessential. It's so funny. I forget where I was recently. It was when Dogs was here in town for 2 nights, and there was a pop-up thing, and they had a bunch of people play on stage with them. And we got in a little bit late, and I think the different groups, I think three different China Cats got played, or two different China Cats, and I'm like, that's just the most, like,
just how it goes.
stereotypical, like, can you play China Cat? Yeah, I know how to play China Cat. We got
Yeah,
it.
it's easy enough.
Yep.
But, yeah, so that band was called Mama's Favorite Band, and that really launched me into the journey of the Grateful Dead itself, and that just was a whole spiral of that was, like, the only thing I listened to for a year and a half at least.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we just kept playing, and that was, I feel like, the first musical moment where I really, like, unlocked free flowing improvisation for myself and any group that I've ever been a part of, because that was their whole deal before I even joined the group. And so they kind of, like, showed me via the Grateful Dead that kind of way of, like, free jamming and just, like, playing off of each other, And I feel like that's when I was like really like, whoa, like this is important to me. Um, like I want to do this and keep doing this. But I was still like, maybe I won't do this for my job or whatever, because I'm still unsure about, you know, society keeps telling me I can't make it. So
Right.
um
It's the status quo, you know.
yeah. But then I get to college, and I'm still really into all this. I'm really starting to get into fish then, really into the Almond Brothers all that summer before college, and all into this jam stuff and get into Goose and start finding all these other jam bands and really started getting into the improv and all this cool stuff. Join a band up here. We just kind of jam around and have a lot of fun. Still not that good, but we're you know we're always making progress. And then COVID hit, and I was like, hold up here, just like instrument stuff. So at the time, I was like majoring in wildlife biology because I was like, pretty interested in science and the environment, and nature, and I love getting outside, and I always loved animals and birds and crazy shit. Um, but I kept like sitting down to do that homework. I had like one music class in my second semester of college, and so I'd keep sitting down to do my homework for biology or whatever, and I'd be like, man, I hate this. Like I'm like I didn't hate it, but it was like nothing compared to like the feeling I got when I was playing music. And I was just like, for weeks, I was just like, man, this sucks. Like, I can't believe I like locked myself in. And then I was like, well, I guess I didn't really lock myself in. Like, I could just change my major and just change my entire life right now. And I decided to do it. And I just decided to send it. And pretty much here we are now. I mean, I just kept playing music with people and making connections and going to, I mean, after stuff opened back up, going to open mics and playing basement shows and eventually getting into DIY venues and then real venues. And fuck, here we are, you know? It kept spiraling. It's my love. My heart grew bigger and bigger.
his
You
heart his heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Yeah.
Um no, but in the realest way, I mean, I've only known you for as long, a shorter amount of time, but I've been very lucky to connect with you in a lot of different ways and have a lot of really cool conversations. And something that I think that I've noticed about you over the past couple of months especially is there was definitely a real turn of the corner of I don't know if I would particularly call it being more serious, but there was it just feels like there was a level up. And I don't know if that was Boogie Band, having a newer lineup, or what exactly that it is. But I think it's really cool that it sounds like, in a similar way to some other people that I've spoken to, your journey through musical development has really been a way for you to cultivate personal development. And it's been something that you could not only latch on to as support and understanding, but something that is pushing you forward from behind also.
Mhm.
And I'm curious to know how exactly you think that, that, like you said, when you were sitting in class and you're like, this doesn't give me what music gives me. Now that you're becoming a regular stage, like a more household stage musician, and you're playing a lot and you're doing all these things, what does being on stage in a particular sense give you in that realm? Like, how does being on stage and having those moments of creative freedom, I mean, I guess let me ask exactly that. Does it give you license for freedom? And do you notice that give you the same off stage?
Um, I'd say it depends on the group. Um,
Hmm.
I would say that in boogie bands, we try to do like a more roots thing where we're like trying to bring the modern era back to like the 50s and 60s of that like blues and rock and roll style. And we're all working very hard to listen to those recordings and learn that language and give that language to people today. So while there is definitely improvisation in those groups, and we do have moments where we even do have little jams where it is totally free and we can go places, very rarely in that band, but we do have those moments. um, it is definitely more limiting, I feel like. um,
A bit more structured as opposed to the free
yeah,
flow of something like Scram.
yeah, definitely scram. Wow, we can do anything. Not only because we allow ourselves to do anything, but like Sam on the drums is just an improvisational force, and he will just pick up anything and go anywhere. He will take us in new directions like that. Like he's just so good. And me and Evan have been playing together for 3 years now, and we've been like doing the improv thing for so long too. We have such a good lock on like exploring new places, and we just like kind of know where we want to go a lot. um so like having that little rhythm section, and then having Sam Jelpy saxophone, just insane jazz player, just pop off on top. Just I feel like it's just such a good setup to go anywhere we want to go. um So like we totally allow ourselves, and that, I mean, that's the first step. Obviously, you have to allow yourself to take those risks and like to breathe and really just relax into that situation, which is, tougher said. I mean, easier said than done. But
Mhm.
um, I think the more you get up there, the easier it is to just like relax, and it totally depends on like how many people are in the room. It feels. Oh, I guess I've had different experiences. Sometimes when we're playing to a room of a bunch of people, it's almost like, okay, how do we keep them entertained? We don't necessarily want to get too weird to like, push them away. But I feel like in Burlington, we're so blessed with open-minded audience members.
You're
Almost
in
every,
the exact right place for that type
yeah,
of exploration. And it's that risk versus reward. It's
yeah,
that if we go out on a limb, hopefully the fans meet us the same way. And I
mhm,
think that that also translates into, drawing that back into mental health. When you have, I mean, let's just say, let's the balls to go out for something and try to foray into the unknown
mhm.
musically is enlightening from an improvisational perspective. But when you translate that into your own life, having the balls to just go out and try, or having the balls to just, I don't have this figured out, and I'm gonna try to navigate and figure it out, and I'll get there however I get there. I think that that is fortifying for any human that is trying to find something.
Yeah. I feel like a good like almost metaphor between like the improv on stage and like life is just like when you're in a jam or you start a jam and you don't really know what to do, where to go. You're like, don't have any ideas in your head. You don't necessarily freak out, and you know, you don't try to freak out. You have to breathe, settle into the groove that's already there, you know, settle into what's happening already, and then you take it from there. You can't you can't try to imagine something that's not there. you can hope for where you want the jam to go or whatever, but where you are is where you are. The groove is what it is. You can't communicate to the drummer through your mind and say, change the groove to this Latin groove because I really want to do a Latin jam. It's like if you just start playing Latin stuff over his funk groove, it's gonna sound a little weird. You have to you have to get there, you have to work there, you know. You can't just jet all around and have a bunch of ideas that are kind of jarring, just all kind of thrown together like that. You have to breathe and take each one um, like one at a time. You have to take each idea one at a time and really accept where you are, and that's like the most organic jams come that way. You listen to any good jam bands, and they all settle into the groove for a while before people start introducing ideas. And I feel like that's kind of representative. Like in life, we kind of have to like accept where we're at before we make moves, because if you're just trying to make moves on some false representation of where you're at, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure because something's gonna come out from under you eventually, you know?
That is such a phenomenal metaphor, and I'm glad that it came out the way that it did from you, because it really is such a beautiful way to look at it, that settling into the groove of a jam and accepting that it is what it
Mhm.
is the exact same thing as accepting that you are where you are in life and
Yeah,
settling into it.
yeah.
And you can't control what the drummer is going to do, just
Mhm.
like you can't control the external things that life is going to throw at you, but you
Yeah.
can control your interpretation and your
Mhm.
reaction. And when somebody plants a seed in a jam and you hear, you're playing a certain, you're trying to change into a different key, or you're trying to hint musically at something, it's introducing an idea, and it's introducing like, hey, this is something that we can try to ride with. And that's
Yeah.
something that I think we do with ourselves often, or even going back to the state of community,
Mhm.
is like, hey, I'm going to try to introduce this thing, and let's run with it and see where it
Yeah.
goes. And it's all about living in the unknown.
Yeah.
And I say often a lot is that, everything in life begins with one step. Whether
Mhm.
that's forward or backwards is your choice. But very it's a poor decision to just not walk at all.
Yeah, totally.
Trust your foot in whichever direction it's going.
Mhm.
And I like to think in the capacity of music, diving into those jams is developing trust in yourself, to trust, obviously it's your fingers, but trust yourself enough to take that step out, and trust the people that you're playing with too, that they're going to meet you wherever hey, I'm going to go up this scale and you're going to go here, and we're going to get to some middle point.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a cool thing to think about. I'm curious, and this is something that I play music a little bit myself. I'm not in bands. I don't really have that. So I'm curious, does the trust that you develop with yourself and the trust that you develop with the people that you're playing with on stage, does that give you a certain trust with people in your day-to-day life? Does it make you observe people differently, or kind of give them the opportunity to trust you?
Um, I think yes. I I feel like I've always struggled with like total trust. I've always had, even I feel like in bands and stuff, like not always, but especially when we're like writing our own material and trying to be creative and stuff, I feel like I have like a dictator sort of like like attitude where I like have to control, like I just don't trust everyone to like um put the best idea forward. Um but in jams, like you have to let go of that, you know. You have to I've definitely been learning more and more as I play and write with people and just collaborate with people, that it's like I need to chill the fuck out and just trust other people and listen to other people, because that helps me learn too, you know. Everyone has different ideas, and you can quantify them by saying good or bad, but at the end of the day, they're all just different, you know. Um, and there's things to learn from everybody's ideas, even if you don't quite understand them at first. That happens a lot of times in jams. I feel like I'll like hear someone introduce an idea, and I'm like, I don't know about that one. And like maybe in the past, I might have been like, yeah, don't do that. I look at them and I'm like, nah, go back, you know? Because like maybe I have another idea in my head, and I like had a vision for where the jam was going to go. But I feel like recently I've been trying more to be like, okay, I didn't like this idea, but I'm gonna see where he takes it, and beyond whether that jam goes good or bad, um, like it helps that person to learn about them. Like I'm letting them make a mistake, if it was a mistake, ended up being a mistake for them, or if it ended up being a great idea that I didn't hear at first, then I learned something. And
Mm.
it's like that patience and allowing things to just unfold, especially in music, because no one really gets hurt in music, you know. It's like
Interesting.
I've heard Rob Compa say, or maybe he didn't say it, but he like I read his like thing on his website about, he like has this whole letter to young musicians, and
Hmm.
he has this thing. It's like, stop freaking out when you mess up, because no one gets killed. This isn't war. It's music. No one gets killed if you make a mistake, play a wrong note or whatever. Um, so it's like taking the pressure off of
Yeah, for sure.
making a good jam every time, lets you learn. And like, God, that goes for learning everything. Like taking the pressure off of yourself to already know, like to act like you already know stuff. You have to just let go and again understand that you are where you are, and you can only learn from there.
It's that letting go that is so, it's so funny that the duality of man, like it's the most simple thing. It's like, hey, just let go. But how much is within that and how difficult of an action that really is.
Yeah.
And something that you just said that is something that I'm currently practicing in a different way is not staying so steadfast in that vision of like having to get to a certain thing or having to be a certain thing. I'm very invested in physical fitness and stuff, as you know, and lately over the past couple of months I've really just been so fixated on the numbers and like, okay, like it needs to be this weight and I need to lift this much and I need to do this many reps and all this. And while that has its place and it was good for a while, something that's been really brought to my attention now is like, why? Like, why you worked hard and you got to a great place. Finding the balance of like not holding that vision. I don't have to be in a certain shape. I don't have
Yeah.
to lift a certain amount of weight. I don't, as somebody who really had to change their relationship with food,
Mm.
not being so like if I want to fucking eat something, I can eat it. If I want to like, oh man, like I can't have any more of this or I need to have more of that. Like it can just be about feeling good. And in the jam, it's more about the feeling than the calculated
Yeah.
anything else. Whereas, Boogie Band might be a bit more calculated. Scram is a place for you to be free.
Yeah.
And I think that it's super interesting that in the context of music, because it's such a vast medium. I mean, there's so much, there's foundation, there's exploration, there's theory, there's so many different avenues, just like there are with mental health. And I think that's
Yeah.
why they have such a cool symbiotic relationship.
Mhm.
So how does playing music versus listening to music affect you from a mental health perspective? Do they give you the same type of feeling? Do they give you something different? Or how exactly does music from either side of the guardrail make you feel?
Um, well, I'll put listening into two categories, and that's live music and recorded music. Um, and I feel like live music, I mean, well, I guess you could put playing into those two categories too, not necessarily recording, but like playing for yourself
Mhm.
or playing with people. But then there's also playing with people in front of an audience, right? So I
All
guess those
different microcosms.
kind of three little categories. But I'd say in general, um, they sort of serve different roles, but similar. Um, I feel like I can play and that gives me the same. I can play something, say I'm feeling some type of way, and I sit down at the piano and I just start playing for no reason other than need to almost process my feelings a little bit, and I just sing to myself and make up a song on the spot. Um, I don't sing that much on stage or anything, but it's fun to just make up words. And I'm not that great at making up words, but it's fun. It's fun to just sing your heart out, you know?
Let
Um,
Van sing.
um, but I mean, I've always had difficulty coming up with lyrics, but which is why I don't totally sing all the time. I feel like, but it's fun to sing, and I feel like that gives me a very similar feeling to like listening to a song that means a lot to you and like makes you cry every fucking time because you have some sort of memory attached to it. And I feel like those two feelings are very, very similar. I feel like there's pairings of feelings all across the spectrum of playing and listening. Um, so I say I shouldn't focus on that, but more focus on the differences. I would say listening, it's less of a mental exercise, you know. Playing is can definitely be a mental exercise in trying to make sure you're doing the right thing, and you have to be very attentive and focused. And like every time I get done playing a show, I feel, you know, definitely exhausted mentally, and but it's also like alive and I'm wired, you know. But listening to music is more of a it can be more of a peaceful thing that, I mean, playing definitely grounds me, but listening can just like allow your entire body to feel that feeling of the music just all hitting you, and you just can relax, and it's almost more of a meditative thing to just allow it all in. And that's, I mean, that's what you can do on stage too, because like when you're playing with other people, you really should be listening more than playing. But I don't know. It's it's all kind of bullshit. It's all intertwined. Is the thing. It's like when you're playing, you're also listening. So those feelings are so intertwined. There's not much differences. There's not many differences I can say honestly.
Hmm. It's so funny that you said that it's all bullshit because when I had a conversation with Jake from Eggy, we were kind of talking about something similar and he verbatim, it's all bullshit, really. And
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
it's funny. Um, but something that I'd like to dig into a little bit because I've noticed, you talked about how, you have some issue writing lyrics and stuff.
mm,
But something that you've done a lot recently is journaling.
mm,
And I think that there's definitely a bridge there in terms
Oh yeah.
of you learning to trust yourself in what you write at all. That can
Hmm.
definitely translate into a musical space. So, from the writing standpoint, and this can be whether musically or just writing in your day to day, in your morning, in your journaling, do you find that, because I think we can all already agree, writing is cathartic, whether
Yeah.
it be something that you need to work through, or if you just have a cool idea, it's processing something, it's getting it on paper so that you remember it too.
Yeah.
What does journaling or attempting to write lyrics, how does that what does that invoke in you, just as a human? What does writing give you?
Um, Writing gives me peace and vulnerability. Like it gives me like an opportunity to be myself fully and um and just talk to myself almost without having to remember what I said um 30 seconds ago, you know?
Sure.
Um Maybe I feel like, thinking to yourself, I feel like I get so distracted by bullshit that if you just think to yourself and you try to work through what you're thinking about by just thinking and just using your internal monologue, it's like you're gonna lose your point eventually unless you're hyper focused, which is not me. Um, but writing is just a very easy way to sit down and put something down, and then now you have it down, and then you can continue to build upon your thoughts and feelings and work something out. um I don't write too much except for just journaling and trying to talk to myself about how I'm doing and how I'm feeling about my place in life currently, and trying to figure out if I'm, happy with all the situations and what I'm working on. And, we're always should be working on something, learning something. Um, just trying to continue to, you know, work on that journey of being a human and growing as a person and finding that growth every day. Um, but yeah, it's just really helpful to just get everything out on paper and figure it all out there instead of in your mind. Yeah, I feel like I can get trapped in my mind so often, especially because like once you put it on paper, you can't reject it. I feel like sometimes I'll have thoughts and they're in my brain, and then I can just be like, nah, but fuck that, right?
Yeah, you can
And
you
then just
can
ignore like something. But if you put it out on paper and it's like, nah, I thought that. That was real
yeah,
feeling.
you're holding yourself accountable.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't bullshit yourself that way. So that's been I feel like I've definitely like, especially as a kid, like had issues being honest with myself. And really like owning up to my mistakes and even like lies I've told other people, like small things, but still I feel like I trap myself in my mind sometimes. Um, but getting things out on paper, it's such an easy way for me to be honest with myself. I think that's been the biggest um, helpful thing.
And it's that honesty and vulnerability that permits you to meet yourself deeper.
Hmm.
And I think there's a real important thing for us to understand in our human interaction, that is you can really only ever meet somebody else as deeply as you've met yourself.
Yes.
And that's challenging because you can get trapped in your mind. You can really become fixated on an idea, or you can really, even in the opposite direction, you can negate things and you can downplay things and not give them the importance because you don't like it or you're worried about it
Yeah.
being received a certain way.
Mhm.
And we a lot of times will shut down and we'll shut off parts of ourselves or put cuffs on something that doesn't seem like it's going to be vital to that progression or to that exploration. When
Yeah.
in actuality, every part of it is how you progress and is how you grow. Accepting exactly where you are and understanding all of those things about you. And no, I did have that idea.
Mhm.
And even if I don't agree with it now, I thought that.
Mhm.
And it's okay that I thought that.
Yeah.
Or I did this thing or I made this mistake. And you beat yourself up about it. And it's, man, the thing I did in middle school to that kid, like, oh God. But you had to do that to get to where you are now.
Yeah.
And I think music is a really good way to interpret things of that nature because music in a way can be unrelenting in that. Like music, it gives you the opportunity where you can turn it off, but you can't ignore what it's trying to convey.
Hmm.
When you listen to something, if you don't want to hear it, you can shut it off, but it doesn't change.
Yeah.
It's unrelenting in its intention, but the beauty in that intention is that wherever it came from, the creator or the person that made it is up to your interpretation. And that's the
Mhm.
same way with when you're talking to somebody. There's people that get into wild arguments about the political landscape. There's people that get into wild arguments about the environmental landscape. And there's also people that just get into dumbass arguments about movies and TV shows and like, no, like this is better than that or whatever have you. But it goes back to the same of introducing an idea and giving somebody a piece of yourself that they have the right to internalize their own way.
Yeah.
So what kind of reciprocation do you get when you put something out on stage, when you're playing to people? What does that relationship give you? What does it show you? What does it teach you? What is somebody sitting at
Hmm.
radio being watching you give yourself and however they internalize it? Because I think we know when we go to a show, we're seeking something.
Hmm.
And there are people that are coming to see you play that are seeking something, whether they know what it is or not. What does that relationship from a human experience, what does it give you?
Um, it gives me hope, man. Just seeing people like really like let music hit them in a bar. I don't know. Like sometimes I get so jaded about how people are nowadays. And I mean, I guess I didn't really know how they were before, but
That's good, but that's good that you can recognize that.
but I don't know. I feel like a lot of people my age are just like not not they don't quite value live music um in the same way that a lot of I guess older people that I've seen have done. Like a lot of our friends and stuff um definitely like love to see us play, but it's almost more of like a thing of like, oh, my friends are on stage. So I'm gonna come
It's
see
the
them play.
cool thing.
Yeah, and but there's also people that really do enjoy live music, and it's not just about us, and they go to see live music all the time, and like that's just some part of their life, and that's beautiful, and that's how I am, you know. I love going to see music because it's music, and I love watching people play their instruments. But yeah, it totally gives me hope to see strangers in a bar, sitting at a bar, paying attention to every note and like reacting to every little piece of a song and improvisational moment that I'm also reacting to, you know, as a player. Like I'm seeing Jess and Brendan like go back and forth on some trading. Like last night I was playing and they were going back and forth on some trading and I was like like they're going crazy right now. And I look over at the bar and there's like four dudes sitting there that I've never seen before. They're like, I learned they're out of towners like after the show, and they got the same face as me, man. They're right there with me on every single note. They're hanging on every thread that they're putting up there, and that makes me feel so good about people, and that we all do care if we take the time to sit down and listen, um, and that people really find beauty in this kind of stuff. And there's a hope for musicians out there to make a living doing this, because there's people that love this shit, and I know there's people that love this shit, like I see it everywhere. But like, to be playing a show and have people love it, it's just a very, very wholesome feeling, and just warms my heart, man. I don't know.
No, but
Wonderful feeling.
there's a specific thing you just said that is so pertinent and powerful, and it's obviously in a musical context, but it's sitting there and hanging on the note and giving the time to listen.
Mm,
It's things like that that give me hope for not just the ability, obviously, that people can make a living off of making music, and that's a beautiful thing. But it gives me hope from a human perspective and a human place that people can listen to people.
mm,
And it goes back to that same thing about meeting somebody as deeply as you've met yourself. And I want to listen to you so that you'll listen to me. And
yeah.
then we can continue to better each other and learn more and benefit each other from that perspective. It's so important in mental health. And I like that, we started out with the idea of community. Welcoming, letting people in is so important, and it's so vital, but it's so vulnerable and it's so scary. I
Yeah.
mean, I through, the mental health stuff that I do and the videos that I post and now this podcast and all the different avenues that I'm trying to be human within. I feel like a lot of times I get this picture painted of me that I'm this funnel of positivity and always, I've had people tell me like, you never seem like you're upset. You always let things roll off. And I'm like, okay, you didn't see me yesterday when I was
Yeah.
like not letting things roll off.
Yeah.
And it's so important to let that vulnerability be welcomed and be okay. Like, it's so hard to be vulnerable, and it's so hard to want to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
And I think music and going to see music is a way, it's a hive mind. It's a way to be collectively vulnerable, because you have the guy on stage that's paying attention to the other guy on stage, but you have that guy that's paying attention to someone in the crowd. And that guy in the crowd is spinning in circles, not looking at anything or paying attention to anything but the feeling. And that is tangible and it's palpable. The energy that's in a room when there's live music present, it's connectivity. It's the ability for everybody to get on the same page. And that's what music gives me hope for more than anything else, is it's unity. And
Hmm.
it's a beautiful thing. So now you're in a place in your, we'll say, career, that you're, hey, if you won't, I will. You're at a point in your journey where you're really starting to play a lot more, and people are paying attention. And I mean, granted, maybe I'm a bit biased because you're like a little brother and I have that relationship with you, but you're talented, and the things that you guys post online are great. And I'll give you, you guys made a post the other day that was like you guys all sitting on the stairs
Hmm.
just talking over each other, but
Yeah.
like talking about the show. And it's a cool, I shared it. I wrote like marketing 101.
Hmm.
And it's funny and it's provocative and it makes you think and it
Yeah.
makes you pay attention. What do you find creativity gives you in your life? What does that ability to just make stuff with your friends and just give it to people, but also give it to you? What does creativity do for you? You know, we talked about writing and how it's a freeing thing and it lets you be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I feel like on the other end of it, creativity gives you the opportunity to not even know yourself and just let things pour out.
Yeah, man. Um, Writing songs with your friends is like I don't know, it's like all rolling up to the Billy String show together. Like you're on your shit. Like you got your shit baggy, full of all your goodies. You got your dope glasses that you're gonna
Mhm.
share with your friends all the whole show. It's like you're creating something. It's like doing anything together. It's like throwing a party with your friends, and you're the only ones invited. But then you get to invite everyone else after you're done making it awesome. Like after you're done setting it all up for them, you know. Um, it's just like I don't know, it's a great feeling. It's very like you're connecting with yourself and you're connecting with the inner minds of your buddies that you didn't know existed. And you hear ideas that you never thought they could be capable of, and they just pop out with these crazy things, and you're like, oh shit, like that could be crazy, and then you try it out and it works so well, and you just like forge this path together. It's just like doing anything with your buddies. Like it's very I mean it sounds so different, but it's any fun community thing that you do together. It feels so wholesome and rich and makes your heart warm. I don't know.
It is wholesome. I mean, think about like you said, rolling up to the Billy String show.
Yeah.
I have so many moments in life, and I said at the beginning of this podcast when this all started how music has given me the majority of almost everything in my life to an extent. The relationships that I have with people, the places in the country that I've traveled to, the adventures I've gone on, green rooms and parties and drugs and all the all the things that come in that little baggie in the little pouch. Um but there's also the really connected nature, and I talked on a recent episode about a really pivotal experience that I had at a Billy Strings concert where it was just a life-changing moment, and people have those every night. There's a guy at the local dive that
Hmm.
something happened that changed his life. There's a guy that met his future wife. There's a girl that met her best friend. There's somebody that found a band that's going to change their life. And it's just so special. And last year, like when we were in Portland and that second night in the rain,
Yeah.
and the three of us just got to a point where we were like, you know what? Like we're going to be wet. I'm taking my
Yeah.
sandals off because once they're off, that's it. It's muddy and we're doing it.
Mhm.
And we did, and we were dosey doing and kicking our feet in the mud, and it's
Mission.
that, yeah, it's that there's a pure childish innocence to music when you give yourself to it because you let it give it to you. And do you still get the same now that you're kind of on the other side and you're also creating this thing? Do you still get just as much enjoyment in the crowd? I mean, I've seen it, but I think something that I noticed, like I said, there's been a turn lately
Mm.
where you really do seem like it's a bit more serious and maybe a bit more, I don't want to say professional, but like that you're really looking at it in a different perspective and really giving your energy to it. So does that give you a different view, or are you still able to just let go in the crowd and just not be so focused on the vision and perceiving and like, oh well, that he's doing this, like he's in the key in this key, like I'm sure you do by nature of being a musician, but are you able to just find freedom in the crowd?
I yes, but for a minute, yeah, like I definitely have been getting more serious. And I feel like I've been trying to be more disciplined about being a musician in general, and not just necessarily being an artist. Um, but
Ooh,
like
I like that.
really like it's kind of separating the lens of being an artist and being a musician. I feel like are almost two different things, because being a musician means being fucking good at your instrument and growing on your instrument, and being an artist means presenting your creative side and writing and all that artsy bullshit. But I feel like I've been really honing in and focusing on my discipline as a musician, and really trying to like practice a fuck ton every day and just like put the hard work in, because it at the end of the day, like you need to put the hard work in, and you can't bullshit that. And like you need to pay attention to your fundamentals and really take the time to work out all the kinks and take things slow and make sure you're attacking every little piece. You don't want to nitpick too hard and like you know be down on yourself and be hard on yourself and all that shit. But you really need to like I've really been trying to focus on you know being critical, and but in a good way, trying to just grow as much as possible. And the time that I have, because I feel like I have so much time right now before I'm really launching off into the real world. But in terms of going to shows and still enjoying myself, I think I definitely still have that ability. I feel like I don't know. I mean, my ear gets better slowly, and so I am like hearing things like, "Oh, like that's a cool chord change" or whatever.
Mhm.
But I try my best, and sometimes it's a challenge. But I try my best, my very, very best, to not be so critical of bands, even if there's something I don't like about them. I try my best to have fun, and um, and really what I get a kick out of at shows that I'm not necessarily super stoked on the band, but like there's parts of it I really enjoy. It's like trying to just focus on the parts I really enjoy, and looking around and being like, oh, everyone's like smiling and having a good time. This band is creating a great experience for so many people, and that is what is important. And I can be part of that experience, or I can sit in the corner and mope and be like, I don't like this that much. you know,
You
I
can
can
be
be a
the
little,
kid at the jungle gym that's like,
yeah,
"Meh."
yeah. I definitely have been that kid so much at shows, even where I'm just like, not, eh, not for me. It's not like up to my standards. But it's like, man, who cares? It's music, and we're all at different levels, and it's all enjoyable if you let it. If you let it be enjoyable, if you just don't try to get rid of the critical lens and try to just let go. And I definitely feel like I have that ability. Even as I'm taking my own musicianship more seriously, I can still let go and have fun.
I've seen it.
I
I've
mean,
seen
Billy
it
String, it's so easy to do it Billy Strings, but
for
like
sure.
even my friends' bands that, um, maybe like it's fun, but like maybe we used to play together, but then something didn't quite line up, like musically and artistically, and we kind of don't play together anymore, but they're still in a band, they still play around town. I'll still go see them play and have a great time, because at the end of the day, they're crushing it and getting better too and growing too. And I love to see it, and I love to see music in my community, and I love to see people fucking kicking ass and making other people happy. And that's what it's all about, you know?
Well, it's exactly what you said about letting it be.
hmm
And we can connect that to life too, because we get so wrapped up in the mundane and in the confusing, and we all have shit going on in our lives, good, bad, and different. But sometimes just letting it be is exactly the answer. Just being okay, accepting where you are, and just letting life happen for you because it's not happening to you.
Yeah.
And, manifesting what you want, but simultaneously letting it happen. It's a difficult balance, and it's living life in that kind of gray area, but it's so important and it's so beneficial.
Mhm.
So I guess something that I want to ask is from particularly a musical perspective. What's something that somebody has told you, or somebody that a fan or a friend or something? What's something that someone has given you that has really driven your musical capability forward?
Hmm.
Or a moment at a show or an interaction?
Hmm. Driven my musical capability forward. I want to say, man, like playing with Brendan Casey of the All Night Boogie Band has probably shaped my musicianship and drive almost more than anyone, I think, um, because he has spent so much time working out blues language, and he like does these quotes all the time of songs in his solos, and they're like simple enough to pick up on, and so when you're playing with him, it's just like that, he'll do this little quote, and I'm like, ooh, that's cool, I want that. And you pick it up, and then you do it, and then lo and behold, he's looking over at you smiling. He's like, "You're doing what I'm doing." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing what you're doing." And then the next day, you're playing together again, and now it's your turn to quote what he was quoting yesterday. And then he's looking over at you smiling. He's like, "You picked up what I was doing." And like shit like that is so fun because and he has like a vast knowledge of all these blues licks that I've like not stepped my feet into, like especially when we first started playing. I'd not really like dipped my toes into that pool yet. But so many hot licks and so many incredible phrases to be said that he just throws. It's just like spending time with someone that talks a particular way, and you start picking up on their phrases, start picking up their lingo and slang and stuff. It's just like that, just exactly like that, except for like we have conversations in English all the time, right? But we don't we don't have conversations in at least English speakers, but we don't have conversations in music every day, all day, it's
Hmm.
it's it's few and far between, but it's cool when you can play with someone and you have this setup where you can communicate real clear and concise phrases to each other that you can pick up on. And that's another thing that I've really learned from him, and that has pushed me to change in my musicianship, is that he'll say a lot of things very clearly and concisely, and I mean that in his playing, and that has pushed me a lot to try to be clear and concise in what I'm saying on the piano, and instead of just kind of throwing my hands across the scale or whatever, or playing stuff that sounds crunchy, drivey, make people go crazy in the audience. Um, but what makes people really go crazy is when you say something that they can listen to and pick their ears up on, say something and then shut up and then say it again, little things like that. But yeah, Brendan and his blues licks have definitely pushed me more than anybody, probably, I would say.
I think something I'm really picking up on from you, and maybe is part of why I've seen such a turn in you, is you're allowing musical language to develop into your just regular language. You're allowing listening and having those conversations to just high quality H2O, man. Gotta stay hydrated. Um,
Drink after this whole episode.
um, but yeah, it's allowing yourself to listen and allowing yourself to talk and listening to phrasing and listening to your fellow musicians
Mhm.
is also pushing you forward as a human.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I would say that it's helped me appreciate language phrasing a lot more too. Like as I read books, I feel like now I'm picking up on like more um like interesting ways to phrase things, and like picking up on like the nuances of English language in that regard, even though like music and English are different languages. It's like I can feel like a push and a pull and phrasing of music that can also exist in language, in spoken language, which is really cool.
Yeah, learning to communicate musically is helping you just communicate in general. Because regardless of the form, whether it's music or language or writing or sports or anything that you do with somebody, it's a form of
Mhm.
communication. It's presenting something, it's accepting something, working together, collaborating. And yeah, it just really sounds like music is your anchor of humanity and communication with your fellow person.
Yeah, I would I would agree 100%. I mean, it's definitely like it's just like it rises above what we can say in English. Or I mean, I'm not I don't really know very much about any other language, but from the English perspective, it's definitely like I can say things in music and even beyond music and English, like just fun primal growls and grunts and bullshit. Like sometimes me and my friends will just get into these modes where we're just doing primal grunts and growls and yells to each other, and we're still communicating something, you know? It's
Yeah.
not like as deep or intricate as what we could communicate in English, but it's still fun. And in the same way, music like um kind of says something that's not present in the English language, and you can communicate these feelings that aren't necessarily can't really put words to, and maybe you can't put words to them, but it's not like as efficient as a communication source.
But maybe
Um,
we're not supposed to.
well,
You know,
exactly.
that primal, think about, when we're at a show and we're barefoot kind of running in a circle in the grass, that's a primal, we're not saying a word, but we're together and it's conveying a feeling.
Yeah,
And music is a way for you to convey feeling. It's a way for you to internalize feeling.
yeah,
So it's so great to get your perspective as a young guy who is coming up in music but has a deep appreciation for music. So what I want to do right now is just give you the floor. Anything that you would want to say to your fellow friend, musician, human, anything, whatever. If there's one thing that Van Garrison wants to share with the world, what would that be?
oh Lord.
Putting you on the spot.
Trust in yourself. Like like you already know, like you know what you need to do. You know how it is, and if you don't, ask for help. But like trust in yourself, trust that you know what's best for you, and try to move forward from where you are exactly, and trusting yourself means being honest with yourself too, being honest where you're at. Um, and to musicians out there, same thing. Trust in yourself. Don't get freaked out by the overwhelming horizons that you continue to explore, and try to just realize that you are where you are, and um, work every day at that, and don't try to stress yourself out about, oh, like I only practiced 30 minutes today. Like, it's fine, it's okay. um you know Again, it's music, no one dies. You don't need to be the next, you know Trey Anastasio or whatever. Like, you're just you're not, you shouldn't try to be the next this person. You just should be the best you can be. And um and doing that means, accepting exactly where you are, and moving forward, so that the bottom doesn't just come out from under you at some point.
Man, I really do feel like a proud older brother. I'm so, and not, we've talked a lot about mental health and a lot of things through this, but I'm so proud of the guy that you're becoming, and I'm so I'm so
Like,
genuinely, no, and I mean it in a real way. I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate watching you develop into the person that you're becoming musically, from a human perspective. It's so nice to know that there's people coming up that are looking at things in the way that you are, and I'm so stoked to watch you succeed, and I'm so stoked to watch you just keep becoming a better musician. And you're always going to be like family to me, but I'm excited for the world to get to know Van, and as deeply as you let them see you. So for all the people that are listening, all his stuff is going to be in the episode, in the description, at the tag. Go check out Scram. Go check out All Night Boogie Band. If you're in the Burlington area, they play everywhere all the time. Van, you could see him everywhere. Um, Go check him out on social media. All of his links will be there. But in the realest way, thank you. So, I mean, look at that face. Come on, the face, the hair. Come on. Um,
getting longer,
uh, d-
going back.
so, fun fact for everybody: Van and I last year, his hair was already longer than mine, but we agreed at the same time that we were not cutting our hair for a long time. And he's definitely ahead of me, and mine just came out from under a hat. But we're making progress, and we're getting there, and we're not cutting it anytime soon. So we have that, and we're bonded.
They're we're
But
strong.
um for real, thanks so much for coming on, and thanks so much for giving me a piece of you, and
Mm.
letting me meet you in the middle and meet you halfway.
Dude, thank you, Mike. I mean, this has been absolutely lovely. I love diving into this sort of thing, and talking about this. This sort of honest conversations about this sort of stuff doesn't happen all the time. So it's very refreshing when it does, and it's important to talk about this sort of thing. So I'm glad you're making a little platform for it, especially in the music mindset. I really appreciate that you're doing that, and thanks so much for lifting me up, man, and supporting me and showing me all the love you always do. It's
For
it's too
it
kind, really. You don't have to be doing it, and you still do. And it's like, wow.
I don't have to, and that's part of the reason that I want to, is because I do believe in you, and you're a good-hearted person, and you're talented, and I want to see you succeed, and anything that I can do to be a part of that is the best thing that I can do for me too, because helping you helps me, and vice versa. So with that, I always say a last message to the people that listen. I believe in you and everything that you do in this life, and I love you. And wherever we go from here, wherever life takes you, is exactly where it's supposed to. And just like Van said, you're just you. And that's all that you ever need to be. So I look forward to more conversations like this over time. I look forward to having you back for another episode in the future. And yeah, I love you, buddy.
I love you too, Mike.
All right, guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care and be well.